When I moved into my new apartment, I wasn't expecting much. It was small, a little dusty, and smelled faintly of mothballs and old wood. But it was mine, my first real place after years of cramped dorm rooms and shared housing. I was still unpacking when the delivery arrived. A tall wooden crate, heavy as a coffin, was left at my door without explanation. No note, no delivery slip, just the crate. I pried it open, half expecting it to be a mistake. Inside, wrapped in thick layers of cloth, was an enormous mirror, taller than I was, framed in dark, intricate wood. Vines twisted along the border, carved with almost obsessive detail, and in between the curling wood were faces. Not full faces, but hints. An eye here, the curve of lips there. The longer I looked, the more I saw. It made my skin crawl. Inside the crate, I found a small envelope. It was from Aunt Margot. Thought you could use something beautiful to warm up the space. This used to belong to your great-grandmother. It's been in the family for generations. Take good care of it. M. Beautiful. Maybe in a haunting sort of way. But there was something off about it. Something more than just the unnerving design. When I stood in front of it, my reflection seemed delayed. Only by a heartbeat, but enough to notice. I waved my hand once, and for a split second the reflection lagged. I chalked it up to exhaustion and carried on with unpacking. That night I couldn't sleep. The mirror stood at the far end of my bedroom, facing the bed. I hadn't planned to leave it there, but the thing was too heavy for me to move alone. I threw a blanket over it to shut it out. That helped, at least until I woke up at 3:17 a.m., drenched in sweat, heart racing. I could hear breathing, slow, measured, just above a whisper. But it wasn't mine. I held my breath, listening. It was coming from the mirror. In a panic, I jumped up and ripped off the blanket. Nothing, just my reflection staring back, wild-eyed, shaking, confused. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I kept staring into that glass, waiting for something, anything, to change. It didn't. But as the sun rose, I could have sworn my reflection smiled before I did. The day after the smile incident, I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light, or maybe sleep deprivation. I even Googled mirror illusion sleep disorder and found a few vague mentions of pareidolia, sleep paralysis, and hypnagogic hallucinations. It was comforting in a superficial way, but deep down I knew what I saw. My reflection smiled before I did. I avoided the mirror most of the day. I stayed in the kitchen, cleaned parts of the apartment I'd neglected, and left the bedroom light on even during daylight. Every time I passed the doorway, though, my eyes drifted toward it, like it was calling to me. Not literally, but in that irresistible way a person glances at a car accident. You don't want to look, but you do. That night, I didn't cover it. I thought maybe if I faced it, the fear would pass. I regretted that decision the moment I lay down. At first, it was quiet. My reflection mimicked me perfectly. I watched it lift a hand as I did, turn its head, blink, all normal. Then I blinked once, and it didn't. I sat up sharply, heart pounding. My reflection stared blankly forward, as if it were frozen in place. Then it smiled. Not a kind smile, not even a mocking one. It was a wide, eerie grin, the kind that made your stomach churn. The worst part? I wasn't smiling. I touched my face, flat, panicked, pale, but inside the mirror my double looked delighted. I stumbled out of the room, nearly knocking over a lamp in my rush. I closed the door behind me, heart hammering like a war drum. Something was wrong with that mirror, deeply, truly wrong. I called Aunt Margot the next morning. She didn't answer, just voicemail. I tried again, still nothing. Out of desperation, I left a message. Hey, Aunt Margot, thank you for the mirror, but I think there's something strange about it. It's probably just stress, but can we talk? Soon? No reply. Not that day or the next. On the third night, I dreamed of a dark hallway lined with mirrors. Every single one showed a different version of me. One was crying. One was screaming. One just stood there with a knife, but one, the one in the middle, was smiling. The same smile I'd seen that night. When I woke up, I didn't feel alone in my room. And the mirror was uncovered again. I hadn't touched it. I stood at the bedroom door, gripping the handle so tightly my knuckles went pale. The mirror was uncovered again. I hadn't touched it. I was certain I had left the blanket draped over it before going to sleep. It didn't just slip off. The way I had tucked it in, that wasn't possible. Something had removed it. I stayed at the doorway, too afraid to step closer. My reflection waited there, as it should, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just me in the glass. I took a slow step forward, then another. And that's when I saw her. At first, I thought it was a trick of the angle, a shadow maybe, but the longer I looked, the clearer she became. A figure standing just behind my reflection. Pale face, dark eyes, lips parted slightly like she was whispering something I couldn't hear. Her hands hovered inches from my shoulders. I spun around. No one there. I turned back to the mirror. She was gone. Just me again, trembling and wide-eyed. But I knew what I'd seen. There had been a woman behind me, watching, waiting. I ran to the mirror and draped the blanket back over it. Then I pushed a dresser in front of it for good measure. It took every ounce of strength I had, but it was worth it. I needed a barrier, something to keep it away from me, whatever it was. That day, I skipped work, called in sick. I didn't have the energy or the focus to sit at a desk pretending everything was fine. I needed answers. So I dug deeper into my family history. Aunt Margot said the mirror had belonged to my great-grandmother, but I barely knew anything about her. I called my mother. She sounded tired, distracted. When I asked about great-grandma, she hesitated. She was strange, Mom said after a pause. Quiet, lived alone most of her life. She had a fascination with mirrors. That word, fascination, made me shudder. She believed mirrors could trap souls, Mom added, that they weren't just reflections, but windows. Windows to what? I asked. To the other side, she whispered. I hung up not long after that. That night, I slept on the couch. I didn't trust the bedroom. I didn't trust the mirror. Still, even from the living room, I heard sounds, soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails on glass. I pulled a blanket over my head and tried to ignore it. Around 3 a.m., I sat up in a cold sweat. There was a voice coming from the hallway. It sounded like mine, calling me. I sat frozen on the couch, my breath caught in my throat. The voice came again, soft, eerie, undeniably my own. It called my name with a lilt that turned my blood to ice. Emily! Not shouted, not whispered, just spoken with unsettling calm. It echoed faintly down the hallway from the direction of the bedroom. The mirror. I wanted to believe I was dreaming, but every detail around me was too sharp, too real. The ticking of the clock, the low hum of the refrigerator, the cool leather beneath my fingers as I gripped the couch cushions. I stood up slowly and crept toward the hallway. With each step, the air grew colder. The walls themselves seemed to pulse, as if the building were holding its breath. I stopped just short of the bedroom door. Emily! This time it was louder, clearer, coming from inside. I pushed the door open. Oh! The blanket was on the floor again. And the dresser I had pushed in front of the mirror? It had been moved back, neatly, perfectly, as if placed there by someone who knew exactly how it had stood before. My heart dropped into my stomach. The mirror stood uncovered, its surface dark and almost liquid-like in the dim light. And in the center, my reflection. Except, it wasn't quite right. My double stood with her arms folded calmly, her eyes locked on mine. But I wasn't standing like that. I was trembling, my hands limp at my sides. Then she spoke. I've waited so long. Her lips moved, but mine did not. I staggered back, knocking over a lamp. The bulb shattered on the floor, and the room plunged into near darkness. Still, her face glowed faintly in the mirror, too bright, too pale. I'm you, she said softly. The version that watches. The one who never blinks. The one who remembers everything. No, I muttered, shaking my head. You're not me. She tilted her head. Not yet. I backed out of the room, heart racing, fingers scrambling for the light switch. When I finally flipped it, the room lit up, empty. As so, the mirror showed only me, pale, panting, eyes wide with terror. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit. I just stared at that door, waiting for her voice again. By dawn, I made a decision. The mirror had to go. I didn't care if it was a family heirloom. I didn't care if it had once belonged to royalty. I was done. But when I tried to move it, I couldn't. No matter how hard I pushed, pulled, or dragged, it wouldn't budge, like it had fused itself to the wall. And in its reflection, I saw her again, smiling, waiting. By morning, I was sure of one thing. I wasn't losing my mind. Something was inside that mirror. I stared at it from the hallway, not daring to go any closer. The bedroom door stayed open just a crack, but even that made me nervous, like the tiniest gap could let her out. I spent the whole day researching mirrors, haunted ones, cursed ones, old myths. I read everything from Victorian-era ghost stories to obscure Reddit threads filled with grainy photos and unverified tales. The more I read, the more patterns emerged. Mirrors as doorways, as prisons, as watchers. Some people claimed spirits could get trapped during moments of death, trauma, or intense emotion. Others believed mirrors recorded memories, and sometimes those memories grew too powerful to contain. But none of those stories felt like mine. My reflection wasn't trapped. It was active. It was aware. That evening, I dared to enter the bedroom again. Just to test, just to see. I stepped slowly in front of the mirror. My reflection was there, matching my movements this time. No delay, no smile, just me. I raised my right hand. So did she. I tilted my head. She copied perfectly. And then I blinked. She didn't. I froze. And slowly she started to move on her own. She reached up with both hands and pressed them against the inside of the mirror. I didn't move. I stood stiff as stone while she smiled, again that unsettling, knowing grin, and mouthed words I couldn't hear. I leaned closer. She repeated them, slow, deliberate. Let me out. I stepped back, heart slamming against my ribs. No, I whispered. Her smile vanished. Her hands curled into fists and she began pounding the inside of the glass, but no sound came through. Her face twisted in frustration, or rage. I ran from the room and slammed the door. This wasn't just a ghost. This was a version of me that wanted in, or maybe wanted out, into my world. Later that night, I dreamed of switching places with her. In the dream, I stood behind the glass, screaming as she laughed in my voice and walked away from the mirror. I beat on the inside until my hands bled, but no one could hear me. When I woke up, the mirror was covered again. But this time, I didn't do it. And on the blanket, written in dust or ash or something darker, was a message. Soon. The word soon lingered in my mind like smoke in my lungs. I didn't uncover the mirror that morning. I didn't even go near it. I sat on the edge of the living room couch, clutching a mug of cold coffee, eyes locked on the hallway as if something might creep out of it. I needed help, but who could I turn to? The police? They'd think I was hallucinating. A priest? Maybe, but would they even listen? My phone buzzed. A voicemail. Aunt Margot. Finally. I put the phone on speaker and hit play. Her voice trembled, like she was speaking from far away. Emily, I'm sorry. I should have told you. I thought it was just stories, family myths, but I shouldn't have given you that mirror. There was a pause, then a whisper. If she's waking up, it's too late. The message ended there. No callback number, no explanation. That day I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. As a child, I'd visited Aunt Margot's house with my mother. Her attic had been off limits. She told me it was too dusty, too dangerous for little feet. But once I had snuck up there while the adults were talking. I remembered a big chest, heavy and locked. I remembered carvings, strange symbols, on the wooden edges. I called off work again and drove straight to her old house an hour outside the city. She wasn't home. The place looked abandoned. Paint peeling, windows smudged, weeds curling over the front steps. I didn't knock. I broke in through the back. The attic was just as I remembered. Dusty, dim, cold. I climbed the creaking steps and found the chest, now unlocked. Inside were old photographs, faded, sepia-toned images of our family line, women mostly, all staring into mirrors. I found a journal tucked beneath them, bound in cracked leather. It belonged to my great-grandmother. The entries were short, scribbled in shaky handwriting. Most were unreadable, but a few chilled me. She speaks louder now. Every time I look, I lose something. I covered the glass, but still she sees. If you read this, don't answer her. I flipped to the last page, dated 1963. She says she's not a reflection. She says I am. I slammed the book shut, heart thudding. As I descended from the attic, I passed an old wall mirror hanging crooked by the stairs. I caught my reflection in the corner of my eye. But something was wrong. I wasn't holding the journal. My reflection was empty-handed. I dropped the journal. It hit the stairs with a loud thump, but I barely heard it over the sound of my own breathing. Fast, shallow, panicked. I backed away from the wall mirror, hard hammering. My reflection just stood there, still, staring. I raised my hands slowly. My reflection copied, just a beat behind. But that delay, that slight hesitation, was enough to make my blood run cold. I ran out of Aunt Margot's house without looking back. I didn't bother locking the door. I didn't even grab the journal. At that point, I didn't care about answers. I just wanted to get away. Back home, I didn't step into the bedroom. I didn't dare check if the mirror was still covered. I stayed in the kitchen with every light on, knife in hand like it could protect me from something that wasn't even flesh. Then the noises started again. Tapping. Faint at first, like fingernails on glass. Then louder. Tap, 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 from the bedroom. And then, more disturbingly, from the hallway mirror. The small one by the front door. The one I had passed 1,000 times without a second thought. I turned toward it, terrified but unable to look away. The reflection smiled. I wasn't smiling. I couldn't move. My legs refused to obey. My body trembled while my reflection leaned slightly forward, as if peering out at me from the other side. Then she whispered. Though her mouth moved in silence, the words echoed in my mind like a voice behind my ears. There's more than one of me. I collapsed to my knees. Tears burned my eyes. I wanted to scream, but the air felt thick, suffocating. Something had changed. It wasn't just the bedroom mirror anymore. She was spreading. The phone rang. I scrambled toward it like it was a lifeline. Aunt Margot again. This time she sounded frantic. You have to listen to me, Emily. Do not look into any mirror at night, especially not between 3 and 4 a.m. That's when she's strongest. She's in all of them now, I whispered. There was a long silence. Then Margot said, Then it's worse than I thought. Click. I threw a towel over the hallway mirror, then the bathroom one, then the one inside my closet door. Every surface that could reflect. I covered them all. But that night, I made a mistake. I forgot the dark window in the kitchen, and in the glass against the reflection of my own face, I saw hers again. Closer now, like she was pressing through. 3:02 M. I woke to the sound of whispering. At first I thought it was a dream, or maybe just the house settling, but as I sat up, fully alert, I realized the voices weren't inside my head. They were in the hallway, faint and overlapping, like 100 versions of me speaking all at once. Some were laughing, others sobbing. One was screaming without end. I reached for my phone. Dead. I reached for the lamp beside my bed. Nothing. The power was out. The only light came from beneath the door, flickering like candlelight. I crept to the door and listened. Nothing now, just silence. Until, tap, 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 I jerked back. The sound was coming from inside the room, from the mirror. I had covered it again with a blanket before going to sleep. But now, the cloth was gone, and the mirror was glowing, not reflecting, glowing. A soft, pulsing white light, like moonlight from an impossible sky. I tried to scream, but my voice caught. She was there, closer than ever. Not just watching now, reaching. A pale hand pressed flat against the inside of glass. Then another, and slowly, with a terrible calm, she leaned her face forward until it touched the surface. Her smile had changed. It wasn't playful, it wasn't sinister. It was hungry. "I'm coming through," she said in my voice. I ran from the room and slammed the door, pushing a chair up under the knob. Then I turned and stopped cold. The hallway mirror had no reflection. It was empty. Black, like a void. I staggered back, bumping into the bathroom door. The mirror there was vibrating. I could hear it, like something pounding on the other side of glass with bone. 3:27 a.m. I watched the hands of the old wall clock in the kitchen. The air grew heavy. Every reflective surface shimmered, like water under moonlight. And then the worst part. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw myself walking down the hallway toward me. Only I wasn't walking. I was gliding, eyes wide, no blink, no breath, smiling. 3:58 a.m. I huddled in the bathtub, clutching a candle. The glow flickered on the tiled walls. I knew I wouldn't survive another night like this. The mirrors weren't just watching. They were opening. And the things inside them, they were wearing my face. I didn't sleep that night. As dawn broke, the house seemed to settle into silence again. The lights flickered back on around 6 a.m., and my phone buzzed to life. 7 missed calls, all from Aunt Margot. I couldn't bring myself to listen to the voicemails yet, not until I was sure it was really me holding the phone. That morning, I did something desperate. I dragged a large sheet from the closet and covered every single reflective surface. Mirrors, windows, glass photo frames, even the microwave door. It was like preparing for war, and honestly, that's what it felt like now. I wasn't trying to understand her anymore. I was just trying to survive her. But something had changed. I could feel her now, even when I wasn't looking. It was like she lived under my skin. Like every reflection was just a thread she could pull to unravel me. She was in my movements, in my voice. Sometimes I'd speak, and the echo would linger longer than it should, off by a fraction of a second. And then I began to forget things. Small things at first, where I left my keys, the date, whether I'd eaten breakfast. But then I looked in the bathroom mirror, still covered, and noticed the towel had been moved. By me, or by her, as I listened to one of Margot's messages finally. "Emily, if she's inside you, it may already be too late. There's only one thing left to try. You have to return the mirror to where it came from, where she was first bound." That was the attic, back at Margot's house. I didn't want to go back there, but what choice did I have? I wrapped the mirror in 3 layers of blankets and tied it shut with duct tape, avoiding the glass at all costs. I didn't even want to touch the frame. It pulsed with a heat I could feel even through the layers, like the thing inside was awake and waiting. I drove in silence. The world outside looked normal. People walking their dogs, kids on bikes, joggers with earbuds. But in every car window, every shop glass, I could see flickers of movement where there shouldn't be any. Just brief flashes. A smile that didn't match the person walking. A head that turned when no one else did. The closer I got to Margot's house, the worse it became. My own shadow started lagging behind. The house stood in front of me like a haunted monument. Its windows stared down at me, hollow eyes filled with secrets. The driveway was empty, the grass overgrown, and the once vibrant paint was now chipped and peeling. I didn't know if I could go through with it. I stood at the front door, the heavy mirror wrapped in blankets in my arms, feeling the weight of its presence as if it had taken on a life of its own. Inside, the air was still. The floorboards creaked as I moved through the house, and it was then that I realized how quiet it was. Too quiet. Even the house seemed to be holding its breath, as if it feared what was about to happen. I didn't bother with the kitchen. I went straight to the attic. The stairs groaned beneath me as I ascended, and I could feel the mirror growing heavier, as though it were pulling me towards something darker. I reached the top of the stairs and found the attic door, just as I remembered it, weathered and old, but still sturdy. The chest was there too, standing in the far corner, a shadow of its former self. It had once seemed so imposing as a child, but now it was just an object, a relic of a past I wished I could forget. I set the mirror down beside the chest and opened it. The carvings on the wooden box were still there, the same strange symbols that had sent chills through me years ago. But now, as I looked closer, I could make out the outlines of figures. Figures that seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at them. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, but I didn't hesitate. I placed the mirror inside the chest, the blanket wrapped tightly around it, and closed the lid. Nothing happened at first. I stood there in silence, waiting. For what? I wasn't sure. But then, a crack. I turned, my heart slamming against my ribs, and saw the mirror, its surface now glowing faintly, even through the layers of fabric. It was trying to break free. I took a step back, but before I could think of what to do, the room grew cold. The temperature dropped so suddenly that I could see my breath mist in the air. The faint glow of the mirror turned into a harsh burning light, illuminating the entire attic. And then the whispering started again. At first it was just a low murmur, but then it became louder, like a chorus of voices, all crying, all screaming, all pleading. I couldn't move. I could hear my own voice among the noise. "Let me out!" I reached for the chest, my hands trembling, and as I opened the lid, the mirror was gone. It wasn't in the chest, it wasn't anywhere. But I felt it, behind me. In the glass of the attic window, I saw my reflection again, but this time it wasn't me. She was there, standing where I had been, smiling, her eyes dark and empty, like hollow pits. And then she stepped forward. I stumbled backward, but my feet tangled in the blankets. I fell, hard, onto the cold floor, and when I looked up, she was standing over me. Her hand reached down, and I could feel the coldness of it even before it touched my skin. She was too close to me. "I'm you," she whispered, her voice now unmistakably my own. And just like that, I understood. It wasn't the mirror that was haunted. It was me. I couldn't breathe. Her hand touched my face, cold and slick, like wet glass, and I flinched. But I couldn't pull away. It was as though my body had frozen in place, trapped by some unseen force, unable to do anything but watch. Her face, my face, hovered just inches above me, her lips curving into a smile that was both familiar and foreign. There was a terrifying emptiness in her eyes. They weren't mine anymore. They were darker, deeper, hollow like a well that never ended. "I am you," she repeated, her voice a chilling echo of my own, as if I were hearing myself from inside my own skull. "You didn't think you could outrun me, did you?" I wanted to scream, to shout for help, but my throat wouldn't work. The world around me seemed to narrow to nothing but the sight of her, me, standing over me, looming larger with every passing second. For a moment, I thought I was going to lose my mind. I had no idea what was real anymore. Was I even alive? Or had I already crossed into whatever place she came from? Her hand moved to my throat, but it wasn't a gentle touch. It was firm, unyielding. The coldness seeped through my skin, down to the bone, and I could feel something slipping away, something important. a part of myself that I might never get back. "It's time to switch," she whispered, and the words burned their way into my brain. The pressure around my neck grew. My vision blurred at the edges. It was like I was being pulled through the floor, sinking deeper into the darkness where she had come from. Where I had come from. Suddenly, the air around me felt alive, electric, crackling with an energy I couldn't understand. I struggled, pulling at her hand, trying to break free, but my strength was fading. "I'll wear your face," she said with a grin that stretched too wide. "And you? You'll be me." The attic lights flickered. The shadows seemed to grow, bending and stretching, warping around us like they were part of some twisted play. And then, just as my body began to feel weightless, something broke. A crack, a shift. I wasn't in the attic anymore. I was in the mirror. I saw her, me, standing where I had been. I watched in horrified silence as my reflection smiled back at me from the other side of the glass. I was trapped inside, pressed up against the cold surface, banging my fists uselessly against it. The world beyond the mirror seemed so distant, as if I were watching it through a fog. My reflection turned away, walking across the room as if nothing had happened. And then I heard it again. Her voice. But now it wasn't in my head. It was outside, taunting me. Don't worry, Emily. I'll take good care of you." I wanted to scream. I wanted to break free. But all I could do was watch as I stepped away from the mirror and vanished into the shadows. And then, silence. Time passed, but it felt like it no longer mattered. The hours bled together, and every minute stretched on into eternity. I was lost. I had no sense of day or night, no sense of reality beyond the glass that now held me prisoner. I had become a mere echo of myself, a reflection locked away, unable to touch the world outside. It wasn't just the attic. It wasn't just Margot's house. I had been pulled into the realm between the glass, a limbo that twisted reality into something cruel and distorted. But in this place, she was everywhere. I couldn't see her, not all the time, but I felt her, watching me, knowing me. She was the one who smiled at the world outside, my world, the world I used to know. She moved through it as if it were hers to command, wearing my face, living my life. I was nothing but a shadow, a fleeting thought behind her every movement. And worse, I could hear her thoughts. I could feel her growing stronger, more confident with each passing day. She didn't need me anymore. She was becoming me. I don't know how long I've been here. A day, a week, a month. Time didn't exist in the reflections world. The only thing I could be sure of was that she was out there, and I was stuck here, alone in the dark, with nothing but the silence of my own mind to keep me company. I tried to reach out. I tried to scream, but every time I moved, it was like I was underwater, unable to break through the surface. The more I fought, the more I faded into the background, the less real I became. But there was one thing I could still do, one thing that gave me the smallest sliver of hope. I could watch. And tonight, I watched as she stepped into the hallway, smiling at her reflection in the glass door. She had no idea that I could see her, no idea that I was still here, trapped in the shadows, watching her every move. I could still see my face in her smile, but it wasn't mine anymore. She reached for the door handle, and as she did, I saw her eyes flicker. Just for a second, a brief, unspoken connection between us. I wasn't gone, not completely. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I heard a whisper. "I'm still here." It was faint, but it was enough. Enough to remind me that I wasn't completely lost. I still had a voice. I still had a chance. And I would fight. I would fight to take back what was mine, a